I've stood at the edge of cliffs that had no bottom. I've crossed rivers that swallowed men whole. I've slept in darkness so thick you could feel it breathing on your neck. But nothing prepared me for the moment I watched my own brother decide that gold was worth more than blood. My name is Marco, and this is the story of how my brother and I found the greatest treasure in the Amazon and nearly lost everything that actually mattered. Our father was an explorer, not the famous kind, not the kind with sponsors and documentaries and clean boots, the real kind, the kind who came home with mud in his beard and stars in his eyes and a hand-drawn map he'd been working on for 30 years. He had two sons, me, Marco, patient, methodical, a man who could sit in the same spot for 4 hours waiting for the jungle to trust him. And then there was Dani, my younger brother, brilliant, restless, the kind of man who taps his pen so fast you want to throw it in the river. He felt everything louder than other people, loved louder, hurt louder, wanted louder. When our father passed, he left us both the same thing, his map, his dream, his life's work folded into a single piece of paper with trembling hands. He told us to find it together. Dani never forgot that our father left me the house. 2 years, that's how long it took us to get there. 2 years of Dani selling his apartment, cashing in everything he had. 2 years of me studying every colonial archive, every indigenous oral record, every geographical survey I could find. We flew into Manaus. We hired a boat barely wider than my shoulders. We pushed into the Amazon with nothing but a compass, that old map, and the kind of stubborn hope that makes rational people look crazy. For 3 days, we found nothing. Mosquitoes, rain, heat so heavy it felt like wearing a wool coat in an oven. Dani tapping that pen on his knee, tap, 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 until I genuinely considered whether prison was worth it. And then, on the fourth morning, the map matched. We pushed through a wall of brush so thick it felt like the jungle was trying to keep us out. And there it was. A stone chamber, ancient, pre-Columbian, carved with serpents swallowing the sun, moss crawling up every wall like the earth itself was trying to pull it back underground, untouched, undiscovered, waiting. I put my hand against the stone and I felt, I can't explain it, I felt time, hundreds of years of silence pressed into rock. My voice cracked slightly, genuine awe. Dani went completely still, and that, if you knew my brother, that was more extraordinary than the treasure itself. For one moment we looked at each other, and we were just kids again. 2 boys chasing fireflies in our grandmother's yard, believing the whole world was full of things waiting to be found. One moment, just one. Inside that chamber was gold, jade, ceremonial masks, urns that hadn't been touched by human hands in centuries. The torchlight hit it all at once, and the room just ignited. I said we needed to document everything, contact the university, report the find properly, that this belonged to history, to the people whose ancestors built it. And that's when Dani's voice changed. He told me he had a buyer in Manaus, a man who would take everything, no questions asked, and split the money between us. I told him that was a black market dealer. He called him a businessman. He stepped toward me, phone in hand, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen there before. It wasn't anger. I'd seen his anger 1,000 times. This was something colder, something that looked like a decision already made. And I realized this moment had been building for years, long before the Amazon, long before the map. This was about every time he felt like the smaller portion. Every holiday, every inheritance conversation, every time our father's name came up and Dani felt like the footnote. The gold didn't create the greed, it just gave it a room to stand in. I didn't argue about the money. I didn't lecture him about ethics or history or the law. I told him the truth. I told him our father spoke to me the night before he died, that he lay in that hospital bed and he grabbed my hand and he said, Dani has fire, Marco has patience. Together, they could find anything. Together. I told him Dad was proud of him, that it was never a competition, that the house was just a house, and that I would trade every wall of it to have him standing next to me as my brother and not my opponent. I don't know exactly what shifted in him in that moment. I couldn't see inside his chest, but I watched his hand slow down. I watched him thumb hover over that phone screen. I watched him breathe. And then he set the phone face down on the stone floor. We sat outside the chamber on those ancient steps as the jungle hummed around us. Neither of us said anything for a long time. Then Dani asked, quietly, like he almost didn't want to hear the answer, whether the university would name the discovery after us. I told him they'd probably name it after the river. He laughed, a real laugh, the kind I hadn't heard from him in years, and I laughed with him. Two grown men sitting on a 1,000-year-old staircase in the middle of the Amazon, laughing like idiots. The gold was still inside, untouched, where it belonged. My father used to say, "The jungle gives to those who ask with patience." He was right. But what it gave us that day wasn't in any chamber. It wasn't made of gold or jade or centuries of silence. It was my brother, choosing to still be my brother. And in the end, that was the only treasure either of us ever actually needed to find. The last river.